Charlie.
And I'm Corey.
This week we will be discussing Gorillaz, the first virtual band that we've ever discussed on Turntables and Tea. But all from a real guy, all from one man, and, well, two men, but musically one man. It's coming from one guy musically, and this is... yes, we're celebrating this album because it just turned 20. I actually saw a Stereo Gum headline. Demon Days turns 20. Because that's where we're at.
Yeah, I didn't realize how close we actually were to the actual release date. Like, we're right in between the Japan and American release dates. That's pretty cool.
It is. And, wow, 20 years. Lots happened since then, but this is an album that has a lot of longevity. Like, some stuff from that year is not still popular. This still is. This album's longevity, actually, I wasn't quite aware of how popular it remained in the dance and electronic category.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I knew it's a long laster. This one and Lady Gaga's The Fame are the holdovers from the 2000s.
I heard that. I can see that.
Makes perfect sense to me. I knew Gaga's was, but this one's in there too. And good for Gorillaz.
I mean, we're definitely going to dive into it, but with an album with this much talent, this many artists on it, that's an easy to see one that it's still sticking around out there. There's so many contributors to this bad boy, you know?
Yes. But as I said to start off, this is a virtual band. But so for those who don't know, the musical mastermind behind this band is Damon Albarn. He is of the band Blur, and I'm mostly familiar with him. I read about his rivalry with Oasis back in the 90s, which is one of the most infamous music feuds ever. So if you're into that stuff, that's definitely one worth reading about. My other main point of familiarity with Albarn was a year or two ago when he decided to go on Twitter and say that Taylor Swift didn't write her own songs.
Oh, no. I never knew that.
That wasn't too well received. And she herself actually responded by saying, "I really respected you. I'm really hurt that you would say this."
Oh, that's a very scathing thing to say. That's tough. Shame on you. You're an artist. Don't say that out loud.
I know. It's pretty ridiculous that was the last time I heard of him in a headline, though. But yeah, he did this with the artist Jamie Hewlett, did the visuals for this band, and they created a whole mythology for these characters of Gorillaz that it's pretty wild. I have to applaud the creativity there.
Yeah, I mean, and they worked it. I won't say as kayfabe or as a constant mystique as like Daft Punk, but it was not widely known who was behind it, and it was cool because of that. Because you were, I mean, this was still an MTV music video, time, and you were never seeing artists. You were seeing these characters, and for me, the tie to Tank Girl and that artist, and the way they used it here was an instant draw. But they're so unique looking characters.
They really are. I mean, before I'd listened to the album, I recall seeing this album cover. Because this was just a CD you'd see in the store, and it was always very striking. I was like, that is definitely a unique artwork. Unique piece of art. Like, for a CD, I was like, that is interesting. I mean, I did know one of the songs, but didn't know what it was called or who did it, just because it was so obvious. It was just everywhere, that song. And yeah, they really are uniquely designed characters, and that extended into the videos for this album as well, but this is actually the second Gorillaz album. The first was released in 2001, and at first it really did seem like more of a side project, but it wasn't one that ended after just one album. This made it its own entity beyond just being Damon Albarn's side project. Like, this showed this was really going to be a big deal for him, and he hired the producer Danger Mouse to work on this album because he knew he wanted to have a different sound, and he thought that guy had what it took, what he was looking for this new sound.
Yeah, and you know, you're gonna grab Danger Mouse and come off, which was, I won't say widely, but you know, people were like, "Oh, this is a neat little gimmicky thing. Oh, look, they have a story built behind it, and who knows who the actual artist, who the musician is." But you're gonna come grab Danger Mouse and then really go at doing this again, and if it doesn't stick, then maybe we wouldn't see the Gorillaz to this day. But it, you know, they set out to have it stick and have it be like, hey, we're not doing this gimmick anymore. It's important for this album.
No, this album is definitely why Gorillaz is still around today.
Yeah.
Because it could have very well just been an afterthought, a one off project, and if this had failed, it probably would have ended after this. But
Yeah.
it certainly did not fail. This was released 20 years ago now, even bigger than the predecessor. It made it to #1 on the UK albums charts, which is Albarn's home country, so most important it do well there. And it's gone 6 times platinum there. And in the US, it's now gone double platinum. It made it to #6 on the Billboard 200, but it just had longevity. It was in the top 100 for 2 years in a row. And to this day, in recent years, it's still been one of the top 10 Billboard dance albums at this point, 20 years on, because people are still streaming it. And that's a legacy right there.
Yeah. It's I feel like I'm going to get ahead of myself because we keep talking about, you know, the legacy and why it's still relevant. It's just so much music packed onto this album.
Yeah, huge variety of sounds are on here. I definitely think this is an album with something for everyone. You might not like all of it, but you'll probably find something to at least appreciate. And it's kind of a dark album. A lot of the dark themes are taken on a bit satirically, which was a bit different for me going in. I'm definitely one who goes for that sincere singer songwriter. Well, you could say a Taylor Swift type. That's very sincere. She usually isn't satirical. Uh, a lot of these songs are, and that can be something difficult. That's not always what I look for when I'm listening to music, but it is what some other people look for. And it can take some time to wrap your head around it, I would say.
I agree. I feel like seeing them in their moment and getting to watch it unfold, I automatically imagine the pictures and the animations that I have tied to it. But I feel like the satiricalness that you get in their music is mimicked so well by the animations and video of these characters that for me it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying there. That makes a lot of sense. And also, they had a mini tour for this album that's pretty wild, where they performed it all in full, and we both watched it because Gorillaz put it up on their YouTube channel, which is awesome. So you can easily watch it. And it was interesting to see, like, how do you perform the music from a virtual band live? Well, they did it. And brought in
Yeah,
so
and
many guests to elevate it.
yeah, and they had learned too because they had done it 2 times prior or done live performances 2 times prior. I don't know if both of them were for MTV Music Awards, but I remember seeing them, and that was like a really sheer, um, I guess not piece of paper, but a very sheer piece that you can project onto. You know, the whole entire performance of these animated characters were projected onto that, and they had problems with it where they had to have a low volume or the low bass registers would shake the screen. So in the one that we get to watch, they had really perfected that and how they were going to do that on a stage show and incorporate these set pieces. It's such an amazing show.
Yeah, it really is an impressive feat.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think it takes the album to another level. For me, I definitely liked listening to the album even more after I watched it because I saw really how these songs can come alive in that setting. And it made me understand what they were really going for a bit more, I think, after viewing the live performance.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. It really does a great job of giving you that experience there where you get the whole package.
Most definitely.
Yeah, we started talking about it before, but it almost feels like, or at least for me, I have a tough time thinking that this whole thing wasn't written to be on stage. The way that plays out, their performance, it just feels like this whole album was made for this performance in mind.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because it's a visual art project in addition to a musical project.
Yeah.
So I do feel like everything was very planned out and collaborative between both Jamie Hewlett and Damon Albarn when it came to conceptualizing all this. And this is a concept album of sorts, according to Damon Albarn,
Yeah.
which I can hear. It's a loose concept, but I can definitely hear it.
Yeah. You talking about the night concept?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
just dark times in general. I would say I think dark
Yeah.
times or Demon Days. I do get
Right.
that concept because we're talking about just issues of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with him on that. I did read that. I was like, okay, I like that. That's a neat way to look at the narrative too. Add a little spice on top with that.
Yeah, that's for sure. But with that being said, we've been rambling a bit. I'm ready to go track by track with Demon Days.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So Demon Days begins with an intro, which I would just best describe as a wild collage of sounds. It's only a minute long, but it does set the tone for we're going to be exploring a lot of different sounds on this album over the next 50 minutes or so. And this is just setting you up for that's really what I get from this intro.
Yeah, it is. It's a neat and perfect, I'll use the word perfect setup for this album because it's so wild and out there. You need to warm up before you get in. I mean, my notes are bassoons and UFOs, and that's basically what we get here. We get this wild bassoon sound and these just sci-fi sounds on top of it. A very dark overture to this show or this performance that we're about to step into. It's neat. I'm glad it's here. It's perfectly placed.
Yes, and it leads us into the first track, which is another wild one, Last Living Souls. This song, I had a bit of a hard time describing it, and because of that, I am going to read a quote I found on Genius from a Gorillaz book. I think this just shows what they were going for, and it's the best, it put into words best way to describe this song. So this is from Damon Albarn. Quote, Track 2 opens with a solo rhythm from a cheap, crappy drum machine. The album's motif of a duality between electronic claustrophobia and mournful acoustic refrains first rears its head on this track. The track reeks of sweating trouble between sentient beings and the minefields of the zombie landscape, a ballad for life before death. Unquote. And yeah, it's a wild song. It's a wild song.
It really is. That's perfectly put, even though a tiny bit long-winded. That is a beautiful quote and a great way to set this song up for anybody before they get into it. I love also there's a bit for me, there's a bit of one of their songs from their first album called 19-2000 here, and it goes away very quickly. It's a fleeting glimpse at an old Gorillaz, and I like that because for me, after bassoons and UFOs, this is almost like your main character on stage under a soft white, and you're really just starting to see the scenery behind him. Um, the fact that it culminates or bridges with this beautiful solo acoustic guitar work and his wild British tones is beauty in itself as well. This is a really, really cool song. There's a lot of, in my opinion, there are a lot of songs on here that I would call hidden gems, or like songs that nobody knows about. This is one of them.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, a lot of these songs are probably still pretty well known, but if we're just going to talk Gorillaz, because this is their highest selling album.
Heard.
But I get what you're saying. Like, if you're not familiar with this, no, you're not going to know this, and you're in for something when you're listening to it, that's for sure.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, it does well for the pacing too. I think it's important to talk about pacing on this album because, not getting too far ahead, but this album could find itself, if not paced correctly, in this stagnant place rhythmically. But this opens us up a very, very slow and a walk before you run type of deal here out of the intro too.
Yes, and we're going to stay in this dark realm with the next track, which is Kids with Guns. This was inspired by a classmate of Damon Albarn's daughter bringing a knife to school, and Albarn said this is a real problem, but he's not treating it as one. So we get a very deadpan delivery on this song, and it also features Nana Cherry, who's best known for her hit Buffalo Stance. This one was a little weird for me because I thought this is a serious problem. That's really all it boils down to. And this deadpan delivery was a bit disarming for me. At first, I got used to it over time, and I still think that the message of the song is very clear despite that. And I do appreciate that he has a satirical outlook of sorts on this, even if it's not 100% my personal cup of tea. It's not 100% my cup of tea, this song at all. But I do respect it. I would say that for this song.
Yeah, I'm with you. The respect is there, but being 100% honest, this was a skipper for me always back in the day. Um, and looking back at it now in a critical mindset, I think it's because musically, I get a lot of this, especially core rhythm. I get a lot of this already in Last Living Souls. I will give it the benefit of the doubt because it does a really awesome crescendo with these crash cymbals that sets me up going forward. I'll give it, I hate saying benefit of the doubt. It really does fit in the ultimate run of the album, but it almost seems like an elongated Last Living Souls for me. There's a very fine line for me on this album of this transforming music, which we get, and then the other side of this really could be redundant, and it's something that I just try to stay conscious of throughout this whole listen. There's redundancy every once in a while, and this one for me is a small example of it. But yeah, it used to be a skip for me, and not my favorite, but I do respect it.
Yeah, this was the final single along with El Mañana, which is later on in the album. I think one track is stronger than the other in that case, and it only reached number 27 in the UK, which is huge drop down from the other singles on this album, which were all top 10 hits in the UK. And I mean, it was late in the cycle, of course, but admittedly, this song just doesn't scream single to me. That's kind of why I was surprised to see this was the one we chose as a single.
Agreed.
I mean, actually, I think the next song had more of a single idea to it. Oh Green World.
I'm glad you said that because it sticks to a point that I have about this one. Speaking of Oh Green World.
Yeah, so this one, if you couldn't tell from the title, it's a commentary on the environment and pollution, and I would say it's the most sincere song on this album so far. The messaging of it it does sound very, definitely reminds me of like the lessons you learned in elementary school when they talk about pollution bad, recycling good. Like that's very much what I get from this. So like lyrically, this is no big yellow taxi. That's what I'm gonna say in that regard. But it did inspire the next Gorillaz project. They continued very much down this road. But I do like the sound of this song. I really appreciate the industrial elements. I think they're really well used on this track. And it is a relevant message today, even if I think the lyrics are a bit cookie cutter.
Yeah. Uh, this one for me is a Gorillaz sandwich. And I say that because in the start and the end, when we get to these industrial pieces, or I guess a little bit in the bridge, but for the most part, you're hearing those sounds almost on their own. In my opinion, this is a hot tea take here.
Okay.
And also the reason why I think that it sounds more like a single is because in between these Gorillaz pieces of bread, we get, in my opinion, I can't believe I might catch shit for this. I get a Blur song. And I understand. Blur was still touring when this album came out. I understand the artist behind and I understand your music, but I feel like this one always comes off to me like a Blur song on the Gorillaz album. It is my hot tea take on this. Don't get me wrong, this is a cool song. It's a get down song. It's very rudimentary, but in like a Blur song number 2, woohoo kind of deal. You know, it's an earwig, but it ends up being more of a Blur song for me.
I do hear what you're saying in comparison to the more purely Gorillaz tracks that are
Yeah,
coming up. I do hear what you're saying there. I never really thought of that, but it does kind of make sense to me, actually.
yeah, man.
So next up, we get it's hit time. Dirty Harry. This is a follow up of sorts to their first single ever, Clint Eastwood, by naming this after one of Eastwood's most famous characters. The video's a direct sequel, and it was filmed in Namibia, which is pretty cool. And it's another Iraq era anti war song, and there were quite a few of these, and not a lot of them were necessarily huge hits. This one was in the UK, certainly. It was a top 10 hit. It made it to number 6. It's actually the last Gorillaz song that hit the top 10 there. And we get a rap from Booty Brown of Far Side and a children's chorus, which of course is intentionally disarming. Um, I mean, and I think this is a cool song. I would put this, my hot tea take is I put this in the overrated category, actually. Like, I feel like there are ideas I've heard before, and it's like, okay, this is kind of like, I could have thought of this kind of like, I'm not saying I could have executed it as well, but I could have thought of like children singing about guns. I've heard that before. Like, I don't think this song is as clever as it thinks it is. That's my hot tea take.
I hear you. I can understand where you're coming from, and I think that comes from hearing it in a different time and place. I remember back in the day hearing this on the radio and being like, "Wow, they chose, like this is what people are getting behind." I dug it. I loved the sound. It was a quirky, almost I hate the pigeonhole, but like an Adult Swim commercial type sound, and that was where my brain was at the time. I enjoyed it. Um, it's I can see where you're coming from. Of it thinks it's more clever than it is. It's very rudimentary. I will say this is where we start getting into the heavy. This is the Gorillaz sound, and I dig this song for that. But this one was always surprising to me because it didn't feel like that chart topper. It didn't feel like something that I would figure everybody would connect with. Even with Booty Brown killing it, it switches. But I always go back to that Adult Swim sound here, and that's why I dug it. It does its job on this album. tremendously well because we get out of my opinion that Blur sound real fast and we go into a tried and true Gorillaz track. I enjoy the song. I do love it. I do love it, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, but speaking of songs on the radio, it's time for the big one, folks. Feel Good Inc. This is a song. Can't remember a time it didn't exist. It didn't know who did it or what it was called. It's always been around. This song. Like, if you're thinking now, I don't know this song, oh, you'll know it as soon as it starts. It's unmistakable that it's Feel Good Inc. And this one features De La Soul, which that's crazy. Definitely the first time I would have ever heard De La Soul and didn't even realize that.
I heard that.
Didn't even know about them yet. And all the history that came with that, too, which is pretty wild. But yeah, a very successful song. #2 in the UK and #14 in the US, so it honestly feels like this song was way bigger than charting at just #14. Because I heard it all the time as a kid. I've heard it many, many times since then. Now it has over 1 billion streams on Spotify. This song's a huge part of the reason for this album's longevity on the Billboard charts to this day. And it's not hard to see why. It's not always a song I think to seek out because I've heard it so many times, but I'm never mad to hear this song. Um, but I kind of, it's hard to hear it with fresh ears and put myself in the shoes of a listener in 2005 who'd never heard something like this or these sounds together. But yeah, now it's just part of the fabric. It's Feel Good Inc.
Yeah. It's timeless, but it's timeless because it's a literal masterpiece. Musically, just in the mindedness of the lore of Gorillaz and who they are, their sound, this whole entire package is right here in this song. Like this is the song you most likely would play if you were like, oh, let me hear something from the Gorillaz. This is what you get. But and rightfully so because it is so perfect, in my opinion, perfectly Gorillaz. Like this is it. I say masterpiece because the way this is produced is so intricate and set. It takes us on this wild journey throughout all types of sounds, and of course it's accompanied by this awesome animation, but still it is so many beautiful phrases here that we get. And then De La Soul out of nowhere, it smacks you. Like I'll find myself in the real lows of this song really in and always getting smacked in the face by De La Soul, which is so great. And back then it was such an amazing combination that you couldn't. This song is so overplayed, and usually I will say that with a cringe, like, oh man, it's so overplayed. But this song could be just like you said, you're never not having to hear it. This song could be overplayed a million times more and never lose itself because it's so good. This is one I have to think this is the one where you're in the studio like, holy shit, excuse me, we made a perfect song.
Yeah. Like, we made a massive hit.
Yeah.
This is our song. And they
Yeah.
made that song. And this song alone was nominated for 3 Grammys. It won Best Pop Collaboration with Vocals. And I saw the other nominations. This was a shoo-in for that category.
Heard.
It was nominated for Record of the Year. It lost to Green Day's Boulevard of Broken Dreams. I think it was a tough competition year. Some very strong tracks in that regard. But I have to now talk about my favorite of all the Gorillaz live performances. I haven't seen them all, but there's never going to be one beating this one for me. So at the Grammys that year, Gorillaz opened the show with Feel Good Inc. De La Soul making a guest appearance, and of course, Gorillaz are holograms. And then a hologram of Madonna shows up to do Hung Up, and then she finishes out Hung Up on the main stage with her dancers and kills it.
Jeez, whiz, that's awesome. I've never seen that. I have to seek that out. That's
It's,
awesome.
I'm gonna have to send it to you. It's killer. I love it. And I will say, in the 21st century, Madonna's worked with a lot of people, and some of those collaborations may have at times seemed like she was trying too hard to stay relevant in a current pop landscape, and thus it felt a bit forced. This performance did not feel forced. It felt very natural, and it kind of made me wish that who knows, it's not too late. There could be a studio collaboration of Madonna and Gorillaz in the future, because I think Madonna's been in the studio this year, so it's not too late. If anybody listening associated can make that happen, I think that would be a very cool thing, because it was a really neat performance that felt natural for both artists.
I heard that. I forgot to tell you, Stevie Nicks did a song with them on their latest
I did
album,
know
Cracker
that.
Island.
Did know that. I mean, Damon
That's a good
Albarn's
one.
got the connections.
Heard that. Heard that.
He can get them done for sure, and I'm sure he knows that Stevie Nicks writes her songs.
Right? That's true. That's true. But I mean, you say got the connections. This is the start of it on this album too.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I'm not taking anything away from Nena Cherry and Booty Brown, but like this is De La Soul, and now we're going to see some heavy hitters coming through for the rest of this album, which is cool.
Oh, that we are. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about some of them. And next up, this is just Gorillaz. No featured artists on this one. We've got El Manana, and this is a pure trip hop sound.
Yeah.
That's the vibe of it. And I like the trip hop sound. So as a result, I do enjoy this track. Lyrically, pretty weak for me, but the sound of it overcomes it for me, that I'm able to enjoy the track on its own terms, because of they do the sound justice, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the necessity after Feel Good, and it's really well done the way this song rolls, because like you said, it's not very lyrically pronounced, but it doesn't matter because this soundscape is so perfect for a bring down, and that's exactly what we're getting here. And I keep saying masterfully done, but it really is. The sound is meticulous here. This isn't just your like run of the mill. You get a real trip hop or soundscape here, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
This is a hidden gem. This is one that most people will never hear, or hopefully everyone will hear after this. But this is a hidden gem.
Most definitely. And we're going to go to another environmental lament with the next track, which is Every Planet We Reach. And this features Ike Turner, a musical legend, a complicated musical legend, but a musical legend. He has been credited with releasing the first ever song to be known as rock and roll with Rocket 88. So he is an architect of the genre of rock and roll. And you may be surprised to notice, but his later years were actually pretty active. He put out a couple of Grammy winning albums in the 2000s, and he guested on this and played a really nice piano solo. And knowing what the man did, I have a hard time giving Ike Turner a compliment, even posthumously. But it makes the song, that piano part. And that's just that classic musicianship that you don't get anywhere else. And it's the same sound that we heard back in the day. That's the sound we heard on the classic records of the Ike and Tina Turner review. Like, you got what made Proud Mary great here. Not that this song is Proud Mary, but like, it makes the song. Like, it just that element, what he brought to that with his musicianship, is present here. And I mean, yeah, he was a genius and innovative musician, just not a nice man.
You did really good there, man. You did really good giving Ike his flowers. I appreciate you on that one. That was well said. It was well said. But he makes this track, and it's so wild to see Ike Turner's name pop up on a Gorillaz album. But then when you listen to this track, you're like, oh yeah, like if you could get Ike Turner to do this, why wouldn't you? And wow, look at what he did here. We get, even though we're in this same tempo that we were in El Mañana, we get a real a journey here. We're not just in this lucidness of El Mañana. We get a nice wholesome Gorillaz journey here, and I dig this. And then on top of that, those keys, man, those keys. I challenge anyone to listen to this song and try to be like, whatever on the keys, because you can't. They are prominent, and so well balanced. Great sound here, and one of my favorites on the album.
Yeah, it's elevated for me because of those keys, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, wow. I did it. I'm proud of myself for.
You did really good. You did really good.
Because Corey knows me. I can't go wrong. Listen, Tina Turner, icon, legend, love her. But
I knew coming into this song, I was so excited to talk about this. So I was like, all right, let's hear what Charlie has to say about Ike right here.
Yep. Not a good man. Don't respect the man, but I do respect the musicianship. In this case, I gotta hand it to him here.
Heard that. Heavy hitter on this album.
Yeah, and it was one of his last recordings, too.
Heard that.
So,
wow.
Yeah, pretty nice way to go out, I think.
There you
for
go.
A musical legacy, at least.
There you go.
And now we've got November Has Come, an apocalyptic tune. Features MF Doom. Like his verse a lot, the rest of the song does not stack up for me, and his verse isn't enough to elevate the entire track, unlike the guest on the previous tune. I'm sorry to say that. I think MF Doom might be my favorite rap verse on the album, but it's just not enough to make this a favorite track for me here, and I'm very sorry to say that, because I did enjoy his part, but I feel like it's just a concept we've already explored on this album more effectively with Last Living Souls. We've done the apocalypse already, and this just feels like a bit of a retread.
Yeah, Doom kills it. Doom kills it wherever you put him, in my opinion. But on the same side of that coin, a Doom song is unmistakable. It's always going to be an MF Doom song, and I think that's tough to write for. The Gorillaz sound does lend itself to the MF Doom timbre, the MF Doom rhythm, the way that he raps. But another hot tea take, this one ends up sounding like an MF Doom track on the Gorillaz album. And there's Gorillaz elements in here, and and we get the singing, but it ends up sounded unfortunately for it being on the Gorillaz album, like it ends up as an MF Doom track, where it shouldn't. But that's tough. I think that's a real challenge. They did a valiant attempt here at making this a Gorillaz song. But as far as pacing goes, it really keeps us in this this is where I get to the almost stagnant part. Like it's a fine line, and here I'm a little bit too slowed down at this point.
I hear you. This is kind of a bit of a lull point in the album before the closing segment, because we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But next up, we've got track 10, so we're 2/3 of the way through this album, because this is 15 tracks. And we've got All Alone. This features the British rapper Roots Manuva, and we've got a bridge from the singer Martina Topley Bird. Another trip hop sounding track. I don't like the trip hop sound on this one quite as much as I did on El Manana, but I still think it's well done. And Roots is a spitfire rapper, I would say. Not quite as quick as Busta Rhymes or Twista, but he has a nice flow that I respect. And I do, admittedly, this is a British band, but I do like that Damon Albarn used this record to highlight specifically British talent.
Heard.
That he did some of that. Because you've got De La Soul and Ike Turner, who are very well known to American audiences. But this project wasn't completely unknown in America. And I do like that a spotlight was shed on that talent. I think that's really cool. I would put this in the middle of the road of the album for me overall. Not one of the best, but not one of the worst either.
Yeah, it brings me up more. It really works pacing here. I coming out of Ike Turner into this, I think would have been where I would have went. But I really like what happens in this. Roots kills it. I love a good British style rap there. And he murders it. I really enjoy that here. I'm a sucker for the way the drums move this album forward on this track too. It brings me to just an old school hip hop nostalgic feel, and I dig that. It's up there for me. It's not top of the pack, but this is a great song. As far as doing its job in a pacing setting on the album, it's a great crescendo to where we go with into the next one.
Yeah, because we've got a lot coming up, and track 11. This one is, if any song I would call referred to as an interlude, it would be this one. It's White Light. It's only 2 minutes long, and it's about addiction. The only lyrics are alcohol, white light. So pretty on the nose, which is not always my favorite thing in the world, but they got their point across here. I mean, it's a nice little song. It's a nice little sounding tune, but I feel like this is more of a palate cleanser more than anything because we're about to really shift gears in these last four tracks into something I wouldn't say it doesn't fit with the album, but it is a very different vibe than what we've been getting so far, I think is what we get on these last four songs on the album. So I think that interlude is needed, and in that case, White Light serves its purpose.
Yeah, this one always hit me. This is gonna sound so crazy. This one always hit me as like the white fuzz of a TV. And I'm a TV sleeper, and this always hit me as that. Like that was the message it conveyed to me musically. This is one of the most rare occurrences because this is the most intentional palate cleanser I think we've seen in a long time, if not ever. This is a palate cleanser on purpose. It is nothing but for me. I give it as an interlude. It's again speaking to this being a stage performance in concept. This is a perfect interlude into Act 3 of this album.
Yes, and Act 3, I'm excited now. Because Act 3 begins with Dare, the album's second single, and this one features Sean Ryder of the band Happy Mondays, and this is just pure disco influenced goodness, and this hits my sweet spot as a listener. This is so right up my alley. It's almost like they said we're gonna make a song for certain subset of listeners, and they did it, and they did it really, really well here. I mean, I don't have notes. I think this is pretty flawlessly done in terms of being a disco tribute. I really do love the sound of it. And it was the second single. It was the only number one hit in the UK for Gorillaz, actually, which that's kind of crazy. It wasn't Feel Good Inc. or Clint Eastwood. It was Dare, but can't be mad at it either. Here in the US, it made it to 87 on the Hot 100. It made it to the top 10 on the alternative and dance charts, which makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, I don't have notes because this is just I feel like this was tailor-made for me being the disco lover that I am.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that because, and warning, I'm about to speak candidly because this song deserves it. But this song gets the moniker of "This is my fucking shit" right here. This is my shit. I love this song. I feel like maybe just who I was hanging out with back then, but I feel like really in the American scene, people slept on this song. This is that shit. It is so perfect. Uh Not only for their sound, but just as a song, period, as a beautiful dance banger. Oh gosh, it's so beautiful. There's so much going into it that it could have ended up as a mess, and it is such beautiful chaos. God, I love this song so much. And then you got Sean Ryder on top of it. So on like a British standpoint, like almost like a punk pioneer, and not punk per se because that was a different sound, but he was the mad Chester man. Like he's a wild head, a hooligan of the arts, if you will, huge in the scene, in the rave scene back then. On top of this, it's such a beautiful piece. I love this song so much.
Yeah, I think a part of why it was slept on in America was I think it was a bit ahead of the curve for
Heard.
the American music scene at the time because
Agreed.
this isn't the only disco influenced song that could have been bigger at that time. There was a lot of stuff coming out. Quite a bit of it was there was stuff that was big in the UK, not as big in the US.
Yeah.
And I think if this song had been released in like 2009, 2010, after like in the beginnings of the recession pop dance explosion with Lady Gaga and the Black Eyed
Heard.
Peas, I think this would have been a much bigger hit.
Heard that. Heard that. I'm with you on ahead of the curve. Also, this is one of my favorite pieces of that live performance. I
Oh,
guess
yeah.
it's on Gorilla's official, so we can put that link in the description of this episode, right?
Oh, yeah. It's on their official YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Everyone should see this, but yeah, this song on that stage, and Sean Ryder out there, that was money, man. That was money.
Yeah. What a ride. But we've got got an even wilder guest on this next song. Uh, Fire Coming Out of the Monkey's Head. This features the actor Dennis Hopper doing some spoken word bits. And what an inspired choice right there, first of all, because somebody known for playing the outcast bad guy. Just a great choice. Very tongue in cheek. He's totally in on the joke of it all, so to say, which I really appreciate. I can see why you love this song, Craig, because this is super Grateful Dead coded. To me, that's
Heard.
the thing. It's like it's like an homage and a satire of the Grateful Dead. That's what I'm hearing
Heard
with
that.
this track. And I wouldn't call myself a deadhead by any means. That's not my go to style of music. However, I do really appreciate this song because just what it's doing, and you can't go wrong with Dennis Hopper. You just
No,
can't.
no. His voice alone, I'm not going to give him his voice makes this track, but what a perfect narrator. Like, that's one of the ones you pick, and he kills it. And he was even there for the live stage show. I dig this in so many ways. I spoiler alert, I I could listen to the last four tracks of this album on repeat and have many times and just chill. That's just the
I'm
way I roll on this one.
I'm
um,
glad you said that because maybe it's a bit of a hot tea take, but I think the last four tracks on this album are, with the exception of Feel Good Inc., I think they're pretty. I think they're leagues above the other songs here.
heard, heard,
There's
heard.
just something real special that happens in this last stretch of songs that we don't hear. Not that the rest of it's bad,
Yeah,
but this is on another level. And that continues with Don't Get Lost in Heaven, another 2-minute song that really serves as an intro for the first song. I'm kind of surprised they weren't made one track, like a medley of sorts. But this is a truly beautiful use of the choir. This is sincere, not like Dirty Harry, where they're trying to freak you out a bit. This is what they're going for, and it packs an emotional punch that we have not heard on this album so far, because so much of this is tongue in cheek and satire is what they're going for. But this shows that, like, hey, actually, there's a point to all of this, and we really mean what we're saying here, even though we're a virtual band. And this really drives that home, and it's just a beautiful sound all around. Beautiful vocal harmonies, some of the best that I've heard in terms of the albums we've done on this podcast. I really enjoy this piece.
Yeah, as also as a penultimate track, it's just so beautifully holy almost in its sound. A very bright sunny day kind of feel. We get this almost surf style waning guitar in the background, and just get to enjoy these beautiful harmonies. It's a unique piece. It stays on brand, and it's wild because it's so much infinitely lighter than anything else we get on this album, but it still stays on brand, and I dig it even more because of that. Really great song.
For sure. And it leads us into the end of the album with Demon Days, the title track that ties all of this together. All these dark things we've been talking about: apocalypse, the environment, drugs, guns, all that stuff tied together as the Demon Days. And again, it's a mostly sincere song. I don't think that this is jokey in any way, which I really appreciate, because I do feel that it ties everything together to say, even though like this is a virtual band and this is kind of funny, there actually are points being made, and this ties it all together in a genuine way, and it brings it all full circle very nicely. Really strong closing track for the, I mean, the end of an amazing 4-track suite. Really, this is one of the best 4-track runs I think we've covered on this show. Definitely one of the best of the 2000s. I'm having there's others up there, but this is definitely one of them. What an epic set of songs specifically, these last 4 tracks.
Yeah, most definitely. This is just a literal finale, and it's so great because they do almost step in front of the curtain here, and say, "Hey, man, th- this is real. This is real. We have fun doing this, but it's for real reasons. And as artists, we're putting this in front of you." It does such a great job of musically showing us chaos in the start to a beautiful exit for this album. Really finale, really on point for the finale, and a fitting end to this album. Also, the linchpin in me not believing they didn't plan this to be a stage show this whole time, but
Right.
it's such a perfect finale that you rarely get, on an album.
Yeah, I do believe this was planned with the stage show in mind the whole time.
Yeah,
It just works too well to not be the end of a stage show.
most stuff.
There we have it. Those Demon Days are here again. That they are. What a wild ride. Thank you for picking this one to kick off our retrospective. Definitely one of the most iconic albums to come from 2005.
Yeah, man, and it still lives in infamy, or it still lives on. But I hope we reach a few new ears because this album deserves a listen.
Yeah, definitely deserves a listen at the very least. But Now this is your album. This is what you wanted to do. What is your final grade for Demon Days?
This one, I said is a bunch, but this one was tough because there's so many things, like the impact of this album, the structure of this album, um, so many different factors that it could be graded on. And nostalgia aside, I'm grading this as we try to always do, but purely on the album itself. And that's why I'm coming in at a B on this. There's so much beauty, and we really do get a great pacing throughout. We never, minus two occasions, really lose the on brandedness of this virtual band and their world. Um, and it comes through as a full piece, but it gets a B for me. I love this album. It's crazy to not give this album an A plus, but judging it as an album, there are pieces here that unfortunately fall flat, and take a bit away. But this album, what it's done for the universe, period, is it should get an A plus, but it gets a B.
I'm at a B as well. It would have been a bit lower if not for those last four tracks. Those really elevate it for me.
Heard,
And like if the rest of the album were on that level, it would have been an easy A.
heard,
But there's just a pretty clear disparity for me between the best tracks and the not as memorable ones. And that's the biggest issue that I'm having here. And again, I think it's just not personally the kind of thing I go to music for. The way they approach commentary. I think it's just not. I don't think it was all tailor made for me. And that's okay.
heard.
It's just for myself, this is a B. And I have a feeling we have the same favorite song on the album.
I, you would think,
Okay.
but
What's your favorite
but
on the album?
I always come back to this. It's stuck with me so much. We didn't talk about it too much, but like this one is, it, for some reason, it's stuck in my brain as such a masterpiece and a work. And I don't think, actually, I know that it would have to be done by this virtual band to actually be as beautiful as it was, and that is the narrative beast, Fire Coming Out of the Monkey's Head. It's such a unique piece. It's always been my favorite on this album because of it. And they're like the only ones that could pull that off. I mean, it's almost like a mini, it's like a mini Japanese shadow puppetry, or you get a whole story here, in this wild narrative by Dennis Hopper, and it's always blown me away. So Dare is my shit, don't get me wrong. But Fire Coming Out of the Monkey's Head has always been uh my favorite part of this album.
Actually, that does make sense now that I think about. But my favorite is Dare because
Yeah.
and Feel Good Inc. I feel like just is such an omnipresent song. It's hard to even grade it with the rest of the album because it's just sometimes on an album there's one song that just leaps above everything else. It just casts a shadow over it. That it's almost not fair to judge something that was played as often as Feel Good Inc. against the rest of the album. It just isn't fair.
My son asked me the other day, he was like, Clint Eastwood or Feel Good Inc. And I was like, ooh, that's tough, man. I think I end up coming up with Eastwood, but only because of a little bit of the overplayedness. It's like, Feel Good is there, but
Yeah.
I'll usually choose against it, I guess.
Yeah. That's where we're at. But there we have it. Demon Days. And now now it's my turn to pick a
All
2005
right.
album.
Yeah,
And
man.
this is an artist who we have covered here before, but we only covered one of their holiday albums. So this is the first time we will be covering a non-Christmas release from this artist, and I'm very excited too because while she is the Queen of Christmas, it's not even the majority of her musical legacy. And the album that we will be doing is a big part of it as well. It is Mariah Carey's The Emancipation of Mimi, an epic comeback album of 2005 and one of the year's most popular releases. Also nominated for multiple Grammys. I'm very much looking forward to discussing this. I'm kind of surprised it's taken us so long to get to this one because I adore this album. Spoiler alert, but I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. And if you haven't already, please follow us wherever you're listening to us and on social media. Links are in the description. And you know that we belong together, and we will be together next time on Turntables and Tea.
Peace.